I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked. You know, you can't have a successful career without knowing how to deal with the unexpected. So if you're a person who sets goals that challenge you to fully reach your potential, this show is for you, because this is a show all about opening possibilities so that when you hit with the unexpected, you have options from which to choose. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy this episode of Unlocked. And if you do, make a comment in social media about what you learned and maybe what you'd do differently as a result. And if you're on YouTube, click the like button. Better yet, subscribe. More about the show you can find on my website, madelineblair.com/unlockedtv, including all the replays, by the way, of the earlier shows. And if you have topic ideas or questions, just email them to me at madeline@madelineblair.com. I get them all the time, and I really appreciate it. I've actually designed shows around responding to those questions. And if you're curious more about Unlocked, check out my book, Unlocked, Discover How to Embrace the Unexpected. It's available on Kindle, audio, and paperback. And if you'd like to explore what it means to build and nurture your resilience with me, be sure to sign up for my mailing list on my website, madelineblair.com. I'll keep you informed about my new group mentoring program, Unlocking Together. Okay, let's get into things. As usual, Dr. Ed Hoffman, former Chief Knowledge Officer of NASA, will be joining me on an exploration. The topic today is customers. So let's join that conversation. Ed will be with me in just a sec. You know, Ed, we've been talking about relationships, but we haven't talked about that aspect of the relationship with customers and clients. And there's a book coming out, and I'm sorry I can't think of the title of it. Steve Denning is one of the authors, and he believes that our economy really should be based on customer satisfaction, because it's all about building customers, not building widgets. So I think it'd be interesting to just talk about that little different way of talking about relationships to people that you may not even know. I remember I was talking with someone who, she was actually a Harvard professor, and she was giving a course, and she was a little nervous about what she was going to do because she had never talked to this group before. And I said, the first thing you need to do is to fall in love with the people in the audience. And she paused and she said, thank you. That was exactly what she needed, to just remember that she was there for the audience. So, and we're there for the audience.
Yeah, right? No, I like that. And we love the audience. We
oh gosh, yes.
And it'd be nice to see the audience. No, I think I think the book, as Steve had sent me a note on his work, I think it's Reinventing Capitalism.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
And what I like about that as a segue is, so customers today are different. In the work that I do with organizations, one of the things that I hear is that customers are very, very different from even 5 years ago. And customers now expect that we can do things with high quality, but also more agile, which means faster and cheaper. And the older notion of customer was that they give us an assignment, and then we take time, we design it, and then we give it to them. And then they determine whether it's good or not. The current notion of customers is that they're working and designing it with you. So that if they change their mind in 3 days after they contracted with you, you have to change it. So it's a very different kind of a notion. And I think it also gets into, how do you establish these relationships with people who are not, they're not working with you, but they're ultimately the people that are making the decision. You want to make them happy. You want to please them.
Well, that's the only
Yeah.
reason. That's the only reason that I'm in business, I think. And
I don't
probably you
believe that.
too. Oh, say
I
more.
don't think that's the only. I think, Madeline, you'll always be coming towards meaning, towards working towards truth. But you always try to improve things. I think if you were in the Handmaid's Tale society, you'd be looking quietly to change it if you could, right? So I think that's an important thing, because there are some customers who they don't know, they're wrong. And how do you work that? So I think you're in the business. I like to think that I'm in the business of trying to create things that offer up improved ways of working. And I think that's part of the relationship too. I think you respect your customers, whether they're students or organizations or leaders, enough to say, this is being done the wrong way. Or you may want this, you do it in a better way, because you're very good at coaching and all that kind of stuff. But part of being a good working well with the customer is the honesty, the authenticity, and the ability to say, I think there's a better way to do this than it's being done right now.
This is fascinating, because I have been reading a series on people who are prophets. And I always thought a prophecy is somebody who's talking about the future. Well, it's not. What a prophet is somebody who calls the game, and the emperor doesn't have any clothes on. So I never thought of myself as a prophet before, but I'm beginning to think maybe I am.
You're a prophet, yeah. No, I mean, you think, well, we've talked about this. You improve me. It's one of the things I value about our relationship. It's the friendship, and we're successful together in the fun. But it's a good relationship is also, I think, people get better. And there's not the kind of a thing where we care for each other because we both stay the same and there's no growth. On the contrary, there's growth and there's development, and you're a pusher for improvement. And so I think that's part of being effective with a customer. And in this part of the thing, I'd say a lot of the leaders at NASA, what really helped my career is that they told me that they knew they can count on me to speak the truth and to raise the need to do things differently.
Yeah. So how do we speak the truth to our customers so that the customers feel that we are serving them in that process? And by the way, while we have their attention, anytime that you feel that you need to say something to me and Ed, a question that you have or a way in which we do this, just let us know. Okay, Ed, back to you.
Yeah, reach out to us. We'll create space over here. We're recording this at a time where one of my heroes from management and organization development passed away, Edgar Schein. And Schein's work was really seminal around culture and his writings, but he was also a nice person. He wrote one of his recent books called Humble Inquiry. Humble Inquiry. I always bring that up to the students that we have. Is I don't think customers are paying for us to be arrogant. They're paying for us to be smart, but they're also paying for us to create a space where we can also learn together. And that to me is this number of humble inquiry, where we're exploring things, we're learning together, we're growing, but we're doing it in a way that's mutually respectful. I'm not all seeing, you're not all seeing, we learn together. And there's a question I have, because I've seen you do this. When you've worked with people, a customer, a client, that you're having trouble with, maybe you don't like, maybe they're doing things the wrong way. They're not the ideal customer, if you will. There are issues, there are problems, there's a frustration there. How do you turn that around? I've seen you do it, but how do you do that? And I can give examples, but I won't. But we've been in similar situations where it gets frustrating. There's not communication. There's not a voice. There's not exchange. There's not authenticity. And it's going in the wrong direction. And sometimes my reaction is, okay, to check out, right? Because I don't need to continue this. But you work it, and I wonder if what your thoughts are. How do you approach a difficult situation?
Well, we're going to get back to the answer to that question a bit later. But for now, our show is called actually Customers or Kids. And I am really excited that I have someone on who knows about customers. Her name is Laurie Delk Radecki. Laurie, welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, good, good. Well, let me tell the audience a bit about you so that they will understand why you're here. Laurie Delk Radecki is a best-selling author, a motivational and keynote speaker, a business consultant, and a top international sales leadership trainer. She is a specialist in relationship marketing with over 25 years as an entrepreneur, a mindset strategist, a certified life, business, and ministry coach. Ministry, we got to talk about that. And if this is not enough, she is an expert in social media. She says that she can help you build stronger, more authentic, more human relationships, whether online or in real life. Real life. She has authored several books. Keep those clients and get endless referrals without asking. We all have choices, how to smile even through your tears. And she co-authored Gratitude Girls Journal. Laurie, I can't imagine anyone listening in who isn't interested in building better relationships, whether you're in business or not. Well, I think that certainly helps people understand why you're here. I tell you, it's a long list, and as and on top of all this, you're a mother. And I'm wondering how you've done so much in such a short period of time. What drew you to be so productive and at the same time so conscious of human needs, including your family?
Yeah, well, I think it really stems back from my parents. So my parents are both self-employed and entrepreneurs. My dad was a custom home builder all his life, and he retired 6 years ago. And then my mom, the first 20 years of my life, she was a beautician. And then the next 20 years of my life, she was a massage therapist, reflexologist, and nutrition consultant. And so they were both kind of workaholics. And so, but at the same time, I have two sisters. And so my mom built her entire business around us and was there for us for everything. I can't remember a time that my mom wasn't there. And so with my first child, I was working and had a Fortune 500 company that I was the accountant for. That's my degree. And it was wonderful. It's a wonderful company, wonderful time to do. But when I got pregnant with my second child, I knew that I wanted more. I knew that I wanted to be there to raise my children with my morals and standards and be there like my mom did for me and my sisters, no matter what that the kids needed, that we would be there. And so, as well as, of course, be there for my husband. But but also as the world has progressed, it kind of needs to be more of a two-income household a lot of times. And so back in 1993, I was pregnant with my second child, and my husband was leaving his job to pursue his passion to become a police officer. And so his pay was going to get cut in half to be able to do what he wanted to do. And at the same time, I wanted to pursue my passion and to be a mom. And so my income was going to get cut by 100%. So I had to figure out something. So back then it was, 1993. So the internet was kind of just coming out for the real world, right?
Yeah.
And so we got our first credit card, and I bought a computer and put it on that. And I said, I'll make it pay for itself. I'll figure it out. And I basically prayed and told God, if you help me, I'll use it for you. And so I started my branding and marketing and web and graphics design company. So I still run that till today. So that's been in business over 30 years now. Actually, it's my 30th anniversary this year. And so, and then I've done a lot of things along the way that has just kind of went, each thing kind of went into the next thing kind of organically. And to where now I have 5 businesses and 3 nonprofits and 3 books and been featured in a few others. And
I love the fact that it's been incremental, but always with the value system of making sure your family is attended to. That's really a remarkable story. It truly is. And I also wanted to follow up on your comment that your husband wanted to be a police officer, which was something that he really wanted, because in one of your promos that you sent me, it said success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. And if you love what you do, you will be successful. What kind of impact have you had through this medium?
Yeah, it just, when you love what you do, it's not work. A lot of times I have crazy busy days. Today I've been busy from like 9 in the morning till 9 at night, which is not my normal because I'm kind of semi-retired. And so I normally don't work that much.
Semi-retired with 5 businesses.
But that's it. It's when you're not dreading going to work, then it's different. I love what I do. I love how I help people and make a difference in people's lives as well as in the world. And so it's not like work to me. I mean, it might be busy and it might be back to back and it might be, okay, I need to get here and I need to get here and I need to get here. But it's just, when you feel like it's what you've been called to do,
yeah,
then it's not like work. You go to bed and you lay your head on your pillow and you can rest peacefully because you know that you're doing what you're supposed to do rather than just worrying about putting the food on the table, right? Which of course is important, but but you want to put the food on the table with something behind it that is meaningful to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious though, when you work with individuals or companies, what are the most common blocks that you find?
Probably the biggest one is people not absolutely loving what they do. And that's it. That most people, I think, look for that paycheck, that thing to pay the bills, or the thing to step on the ladder of success higher and higher, right? But if it's not their heart and their passion, then they're going to have that ceiling that is going to be much lower than what it actually should be, because they're not fulfilling what they're supposed to be here on this earth for, right? Because we're all,
but you just said something interesting.
Yeah.
The quote from your promo that I read was about happiness. But what I'm hearing you say, it's a much deeper thing than happiness. It's really, as you said, something from your heart. Because you may not go around laughing and giggling all the time, but when it's coming, it's literally coming out of your heart to better the world. I think that's what you were really referring to. Am I right?
Right. Yes, exactly. Like from your heart and your soul, your whole inner being, because we all have been born with gifts, right? Every one of us has different gifts to give to the world. And it's really, like money exchanges hands for different services and things. But a lot of times there's bartering, right? And then like in the really, really old days, it was all pretty much bartering before money was even around. But that's it. So when you find the different gifts that you have and you share them with different people, then you can learn to do and get whatever you need also.
So how do you work with your customers? Is it a one-on-one? Is it through workshops? And how do you deal with some of those issues you talked about?
So I have several different modalities. So I do one-on-one coaching. That's what I prefer just because it's more personable, and either you can see them in person, or like this, like we do Zoom meetings where you can see people's eyes, right? Because windows to the soul are through your eyes. But I also do small group coaching. I speak on stages all around the world, so a lot of times it's big events. But my favorite is the one-on-one, because you can really dig down deep into what somebody's heart and souls and desires are that they might not open up in even a group coaching, or especially not at a big event, right, where they don't have the ability to speak up like that. So I love to boil it down and get with people closer and one-on-one. And as far as like a lot of the world says, money wise, that's not as much good, because you can't feed help as many clients. But the same thing, my passion is to help people and get to where they want to be, and that is my heart and soul. And so I'm good with helping a few people, and then that's just going to lead more. And because when they're helped, then they can help other people, because it's
right. And the multiplier effect is really through them, not through large audiences and things like that. But I'm curious, your emphasis is on customers. What if, in fact, you can't establish that kind of relationship? I run this television show, and it's been over a year that I've run it. Before that, I was on radio for several years. I can't see my audience. I can't develop a particular personal relationship. So what's your advice on how I can better understand my clients?
Yeah, ask them to reach out to you. We have our Gratitude Girls show that we've done over 10 years with my co-founder that's in Canada. And we have the show every month, and we talk to our sphere. But we ask people to write to us, comment below the video, just like I saw you do, but also to message us and give us their feedback and ask us questions and give us comments. And the same thing, we feed off of those to what we bring into the next show, and how we can also help our clients. And we have a Gratitude Girls Who Practice Gratitude Every Day group on Facebook, where people can comment and talk to each other in there. And so we get feedback in there as well.
So in addition to my show, I could create like a little Facebook group that would allow people to interact with each other. I think that's a great idea. That's going on my list.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because you want to be where your customers are, right? Mm-hmm. And where a lot of people are nowadays is Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, of course, now. But depending on what genre you're going after. Mm-hmm. But still, the Facebook groups allows people to interact with each other. So not only you're interacting with your sphere, but they can interact with each other. And someone else might ask a question that 20 other people have, but they're too chicken to ask. Right? And so then you get to help everybody all at once.
I think you're right. I think the key there is that they can interact with many other people. They don't feel like they're in the spotlight. They can, I don't want to say hide, but there's more around them. Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, I've got an action item for sure that I'm going to do.
Yes, absolutely. And in your Facebook group, you can also allow people to post as anonymous. So if they want to be completely hidden.
Oh, okay. I know what you mean now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Got it. I actually commented on somebody's blog this morning, and I wanted to say who I was. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. So it went on as anonymous, but just how it is. At least I got my words out there in my response. It was an interesting blog, and I wanted her to know that. What are some of the basic rules that always should be kept in mind when you're interacting with customers? That, by the way, that question is from a teenager. I always ask teens, what would you ask my guest if you sat in my seat? So that's one of the questions from them.
Awesome. And that is so wonderful to reach out to the younger generation, right?
Yeah.
Because they have different like sights than we did, right? They are raised differently than we did. And but still, I believe in the end, the biggest thing is being true, raw, and authentic to you. And that's why one of the big reasons why I love platforms like this, the Facebook Lives, the Zooms, even the TikToks, just because it's video and you can't hide behind it, right? People see you. And like I said earlier, the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? And when you are just raw and real and authentic and caring and showing your heart, people see through that. And on the same note, if you're not, people see through that as well.
So how do you prepare somebody to be that way? I mean, that's great vulnerability. I mean, Brene Brown talks about that, and that's supposed to be the key, but that's a very difficult place to step into. How do you prepare your clients to do that?
Well, it's one thing I teach and say is that it's just like anything else. Practice makes perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And so I encourage my clients to do videos in front of their customer or client base that the same thing are raw and real, on the fly. Maybe your hair's not fixed, maybe your makeup's not done, right? Maybe, you don't have the perfect lighting. Maybe you're not in the perfect space, but you're still willing to do it. And so the more you do it, the more you are going to get better at your lighting and having everything the way you want it. But people are going to see that raw and real side to where they're going to end up feeling that authenticity from you. And when they feel that authenticity, it's like the heartstrings. You're pulling them closer to you, right? So you want to do that with your spouse, significant other, your children, but you also want to do that with your clients and customers. Like every year for Valentine's Day, I send out a card to all my clients and customers that says, we love you and appreciate you on Valentine's Day. And if somebody is like a widow or widower or divorced or maybe even single all their life, right? It doesn't matter if whatever their situation is, they still can feel that love and that hug in the mail because they're like, wow, everybody, and not everybody sends Christmas cards, right? But a lot of businesses do. But how many businesses send Valentine's Day cards saying, I love my customers and I hug my customers and clients, right?
I didn't get any from anybody except my husband.
See, and how different would that make if your insurance agent, for example, mm-hmm. sent you that card, then even no matter how much you love your insurance agent or how much maybe even not unhappy, but say you're just, okay with them, mm-hmm. right? But if you get that card in the mail, then somebody else that sells insurance that comes to you and says, oh, I can save you $100 a year. Are you going to move? Probably not, because you feel that love from the people that are giving you service.
Yeah. Another thing that occurs to me as you're saying this is that we should look for opportunities across the calendar to just reconnect with people. I've missed Valentine's Day. Okay. That was yesterday. I can't send that out but is there like St. Patty's Day or Arbor Day? Anything would give you an excuse to reach out to your customers. I think that from my perspective, I would be unlikely to send out a Valentine's card. Just not that I don't love people. I do. But that's probably unlikely. But there might be another one that would be just perfect for me to use. And it's just an excuse to reach out to them.
Yes, absolutely. And you can Google unexpected holidays and get all kinds of different ones. I have sent out St. Patrick's Day cards before. And I have sent out, one of my most favorite ones is watermelon seed spitting contest day cards. And so that's it. It makes people smile. It makes people laugh when they get the card in the mail.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when they have that kind of like dopamine effect thought attached to your name,
yeah,
then the same thing that just pulls those heartstrings closer to you, right? And where they're going to be your customer for life or your client for life, and they're going to refer other people without you asking. Like the old sales books say, always ask for referrals. And I say, don't ever ask for referrals. Deserve them. Right?
Well, yes, I would agree with that. Well, here's another question for my teens. How applicable is the notion that the customer is always right in today's modern day age?
Yes. So I believe that most of the time, yes, the customer is always right. I think you should do whatever you can to appease your customers, right? Especially in this day and world, because you can build your business reputation up very well, and in one shot, it be taken down through social media, right? With an unhappy customer. So I believe that you should, of course, always try to fix whatever the situation is, and maybe even bend over a little bit backwards to appease a customer more than you normally would have. But I also believe that there are some people that do want to try to take advantage of companies or other people as well. And so you want to protect yourself from there. And you don't want to be a doormat and get stepped on either, right? So you have to look at each situation differently. I remember this story that I heard about another friend that owns a company, and she has a bunch of teenagers that work for her. And it was a couple years ago, right when COVID was kind of ending, people were getting back into stores, but the masks were optional. Either you could wear a mask or you didn't have to wear a mask, kind of thing. It was your choice. And they sold masks in the store. And so they had them hanging up, and there was a little sign that said, please do not try on masks. If you try it on, you've bought it, right? Obviously during that time, especially, and it's a sanitary thing, right? And so a customer came in and they took it out of the package. They looked in the little mirror and they tried it on. And one of the employees saw and said, ma'am, could you please, proceed to she had put it back on the counter. And so she said, can you please, pick that back up? And, because we can't try those on. That's a sanitary thing. You have to go ahead and purchase that. And the customer said, no, I'm not going to purchase that. I don't want it. I was just trying it on and it didn't feel right, or whatever excuse, right? And the young girl said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's not, it's not something you can try on. It's not like a shirt or a pair of pants, right? It's a mask. So it's almost like undergarments, right? Because you're breathing on it. And especially during COVID, it was so major, right? Of a protective thing for people. And so she demanded to see the manager. And so this girl's the store owner, and she came up and she backed her employee up and said, no, ma'am, she's right. We do have a sign out there also asking you to not try them on. The mirrors are for the clothes that are like 20 feet away. And, you chose to put it on. So yes, we are going to ask you to buy it, and she threw it down on the ground and walked out of the store. And so, but she told us later, the employee felt so grateful that the owner backed her.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a situation, just one example of where the customer's not always right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And she probably did a great, huge service to this teen girl.
Yep.
Who's going to grow up and saw this morals and standards and the ethics behind it,
Mm-hmm.
and the principles behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so that's where I say it just depends on the situation. If you can make it right, then yes, obviously make it right.
You know what I like about that particular story is the manager's decision to make a long-term decision, not a short-term decision. She easily could have said, well, of course, but she didn't. She stuck to the long term, because in the long term, she's going to do better than if she had essentially undercut her staff.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a great story. Absolutely great story. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit, because one of the things that I read about you is that you're a grief coach. I'm really curious. How did you learn to become a grief coach? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so I was already licensed to be the life, ministry, and business coach for probably about 20 years. And back in 2013, my kid's dad, my husband, and I had been almost married. It was 6 months shy of our 20th anniversary. And he passed away in a tragic car wreck that was instant. And then 6 months later, we lost our family dog, our boxer we had for 13 years. And then a month after that, I lost my grandfather, my dad's dad. And then my 2 years after that, my oldest daughter got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thankfully, she's alive and she's very well and she healed from it. But at the same exact time, my mother got diagnosed with uterine cancer.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we lost her in 2016. And then,
are you trying to say you're familiar with grief?
Yes. So yes. And then we had probably 7 or 8 other losses just in the last 10 years time. And so through that, I obviously was not only having to help myself, but then like after I lost my husband, I started looking for help myself. And I joined several groups, and a lot out there was people would still talk in the groups about, 15 years later, oh, woe is me. And it was the 10-year anniversary of my kid's dad this year. And I'm now remarried. I didn't date for 7 years. I got remarried at 8 years. And, but there's still that pull on your heart, during especially during the specific dates and the times. But I was looking for help and I wasn't finding it. So I created it. So I created a group called Wonderful Widowed Women because I didn't want the negative connotation on the word widow, which is what I felt myself when I thought about it. And so the same thing, I just tried to find another term that would be a more happy term, right? And I knew that my late husband would not want me crying in my bed sheets every day. I knew God didn't want me doing that, right? I was still breathing. So there was a reason and a purpose. And I also knew that my children were, I had 2 still at home, 2 adults, but they're going to go through tragedies, of some sort, right? Might not be the exact same thing, but they still lost their dad. And so I knew I had to be an example for my children of how to walk through those steps. And
as you're talking, Laurie, I can really see that you really think about your life and you really reflect on it and you make choices about it. Now, my whole premise around resilience and unlocking it is to recognize that it is a choice. You get hit with something and you have the moment that you can choose how you want to move forward. So I would really like your expansion of that thing. We all have choices. How can someone learn to make choices with less fear?
Right. Yeah. And that's it. And even smile through your tears, like my book says, right? Because that's it. There was times I learned to carry my makeup with me because I would cry on the way to an event because something would, a trigger happens, right? I have, about 6 months after my late husband passed away and the dog passed away. And at first I said, I'm never going to get another dog because I don't want people to think, when's she going to replace her husband? Right. And it's just crazy thinking when you're in that situation. Right. But then I realized I live out in the country. I wanted a dog in the house. And so I got a dog and I named her Trigger. And my daughter, who was 16 at the time, and I would try to not cry around my kids, but then I also believe that it was safe to do so because the kids should see your emotions too, right? And see that it's okay. And so my daughter caught me once, snuggling with the dog, and she said, "See, Trigger fixes mommy's triggers." So,
oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, but it's just so you learn to, and that's what I try to teach and help people with in my book, is that you can go through life and everybody's going to have different tragedies or different circumstances that might not be the most happiest situation, right? Because we all have those valleys and the high things, right? And the low valleys. And but through that, you can still find, like, even that pretty blue vase that's on the wall, and focus on that, how beautiful blue it is, how the pretty shape is, whether it's tall or small or short and fat and stubby, whatever it is, right? You can find and just kind of dwell in the beauty. And that just changes your whole mindset, but it also changes your whole inside, going from grief to gratitude.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Well, I hate to admit it, but we've gone through a lot of time. And so I want to make sure I give you a chance to do some wrapping up. But first of all, let's talk about one thing. I have people in my audience that range in their 20s to their 60s and more. They're at different stages of their career. Maybe they're just starting out. Maybe they're in a transition. What would you say to them so that when they are in a situation where they're dealing with a customer, maybe they call them a client, maybe they call them an audience, sometime where they really have to interact. What would you recommend they do to better understand that?
I love asking questions. When you ask questions and you ask open-ended questions, right, where the people can't just say yes or no. You ask open-ended questions to get them to talk to you. And when they talk to you, people will naturally, especially the more comfortable you make them feel, they will naturally open up to you. And then you can see how the best way for you to help them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's in the end, that's what you want to do. You want to help them with whatever their needs are. And so whether you provide a service or a product or whatever, if you ask those questions, then you can see, rather than saying, this is what I do and this is how great I am and this is how great my products are, you can figure out how your products and or services will help that person best.
I love that example and that recommendation. believe it or not, there has been scientific research in this area. And people who ask questions of another person tend to be liked more. And that you're talking exactly that. Oh, this has been so great. I really appreciate what you've brought today. And I love this wonderful widowed women. I'm going to use that phrase just because you're right. It changes how we feel about that person. They are as wonderful as they always were. Well, Laurie, do you have some closing comments for our audience?
I would just say, if you're not, think about whatever you're doing. And it's not even just in your job, but in your life, right? And think about whatever you're doing and see if it is alignment with your heart and soul, right? And if it's the best thing that you could or should be doing. And I'll just close with this one thing. My great aunt told me. She was like in her 90s when I was probably 10. But I remember it and it stuck with me. And she said, and she was talking about a spouse, but you could apply it with any relationship in your life. She said, never go to bed angry and always find something to laugh together about. Her and my great uncle, I remember, would watch Saturday morning cartoons and they would watch them together. And that was one of their things. And they would walk, she was in her 90s, they would walk 5 miles a day together. And they owned a big, huge, like an acre big garden and worked in that. So, I mean, they did lots of things to be healthy. But, I've tried to take that principle all throughout my life of not only with my spouse, but with my children and even with my customers and clients. Because there's always going to be disagreements or things. And just think about that. Is this disagreement something to, quote, get divorced over, right? And even if you're not married, just end the relationship over. And if it's not, let them be right. Let them think they're right anyway. And move on, because it's not that. But if it is a big deal, then stand your ground, right? And definitely, like, don't be a doormat. Stand your ground, because there are some things that you need to. But otherwise, let it go and be happy.
Ah, great advice. If you can get there. Well, again, Laurie, I really, really appreciate your time and the expertise that you've brought and your experience. Oh my goodness, this has been really fun. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Wow. I tell you, what a life she leads. Like 5 businesses and nonprofits and not-for-profits and wonderful widowed women. I just think that's a marvelous phrase, just a marvelous phrase. Well, before Laurie joined me, you will recall that Dr. Ed had just asked me a question about relationships with customers that are not necessarily who you want. So let's rejoin the conversation.
Involved in the relationship.
It's funny when you ask me that question, what comes to mind is a relationship that I actually terminated because the person in the end was not willing to alter their thinking at all. Okay, but let me come back to when I.
But that's a vital point too, because I agree with you. I think if a dead shark is a dead shark, it's not going to come back to life, and so. Yeah, I mean, again, we've had this conversations. I've turned away like 3 times in my career when I was at NASA. I said, I don't believe this is going to work. They don't believe it's going to work. Maybe you get somebody else. So I think that's a good solution. But I've also seen you work it where things have not been ideal. And
well, what I do, Ed, now I'm thinking about areas where I've succeeded. I go away and really think about the relationship and think about where they are and what they're trying to do. And I will often invest enormous amounts of time and energy to write or design something that will respond to that deeper need, and say and offer it as a draft. This is just my thinking. I've been kind of reading between the lines, and I want you to know that it's completely open for you to change it. But would you read it? So that's one of the techniques. Another technique is to start asking questions. And I know with students, sometimes you deal with students and they're great people, right? But they do something that's just stupid for them. And it's going to kill them in the end. And it's going to kill them. So I start asking questions. And I always, when I first meet a student, I always say, I'm going to ask you a lot of, know that the only reason I ask a question is because I want more information. So that puts them at ease. But that's what I do. And
I've seen that. Yeah, with you.
Yeah.
The writing the two sides writing. You have a whole approach for that, which gets into many of these things. Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. I have a little book. It's called Essays in Two Voices. It's only 24 pages long. And I wrote it that way so that people could pick it up, read it, and do it. And it's where you literally write. You have somebody that you want to deal with them, and you write your thoughts on it. They write their thoughts on it. You swap, and then you write a little bit more, but fewer words. And then you swap. And I can't describe it because it takes a little too long to describe it fully.
I think that you reframe the situation. I've seen you do that really masterfully. You reframe what's going on. You change the story, if you will. You engage them. And so I think that's what you do. And probably you get to the point where if that doesn't work, it's okay. It's time, for people to work in a different relationship. Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes, I called it firing them, but they don't know they've been fired. They just know I've left the scene.
That's right. You've been fired that's right. I've disappeared.
That's right.
Elvis has left the building.
That I really enjoyed that conversation with Ed. We do those unrehearsed, so you're hearing what's really on our minds. So I hope you appreciate that. At least I have a lot of fun doing it. So I hope you have a lot of fun listening. We have businesses for many reasons, but without customers to purchase our products or services or ideas, nothing really happens. And those of you who are not in a business, but are in a not-for-profit, you have customers too. They're called volunteers, contributors, members. Caring for them is just as important for sustainability. I might say even essential. So don't forget to make a comment in social media about what you learned today that you might do differently. I've already got an action item on my list. So I hope you'll write and say, this is what I'm going to do because I've been listening to Laurie and this is what she suggested. And if you're on YouTube, remember to click the like button and better yet, subscribe. Well, I really want to thank you very much for joining this segment of Unlocked. I'm Madeline Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilience.